All right. Welcome to today's live, everyone. I am super excited because we have a jam-packed episode for you. We're going to be talking about health, wealth, and business because, those are all of the things that we should be concentrating on these days. And we have an amazing guest lined up for you. So if you guys have any questions, make sure that you put them all down in the comments because we will pop them up. We will answer them to the best of our abilities. So without further ado, I'm going to have our guest, tell us a little bit about herself because she's been involved with so many different things in terms of, what she does for a living, what she does for her own brand. And, I think I'm just going to bring her on and have her explain. So here we go. Katrina, how are you?
I am amazing, Celia. Thank you so much for hosting me.
No problem.
Super grateful to the plug, and I've so enjoyed our interactions and conversations already. So much.
Yeah, we've been talking on and off for the past week or 2 weeks or whatever it may be, and we have so much in common. So I'm really excited for our conversation. Before we hop into anything too crazy, though, would you like to give a little bit of a background about you so that people can kind of understand what where you're coming from in our conversation?
Absolutely. So I joke, but not joke, oftentimes that I feel like I've lived 10,000 lives. So as just highlights of my background, highlights of my story real quick, and I'm sure we'll dive into several things. I am a lifestyle entrepreneur and a transformation coach. I'm the creator and CEO of Fit Life Creation. However, I have walked through so many different things. My transformation story is absolutely crazy. Everything from fear to faith, self-hate to love, corporate to calling, bondage to freedom. Freedom drives my life in so many different ways. I lost over 55 pounds over 6 years ago and have kept it off. And we'll get into more details with that. I've also radically transformed my own business and money in the process of a lot of things right now, like all of us. And I deeply relate to a lot of what people are walking through right now. And so I want to extend that out as well. And I'm also deeply grateful for every teacher I've ever had, whether it's my parents. I was talking to my mom earlier in Bulgaria, into several other teachers through school, entrepreneurship, and more. So thank you so much for having me on, Celia. Super grateful to be here.
No problem. I am so excited to hop into this conversation because I know we have a lot of things to cover and we're probably not going to finish it in one episode. So let's start a little bit with your transformation. How did that come about, and where did that come from? What was your inspiration to start on that?
So several pivotal points, and I'll tie it to initially when I moved to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And 3 pivotal events / things that happened. So I moved to Atlanta in 2010. And when I moved here, I know I just gave you this backstory, right? But I moved here as chief audit executive. So you can imagine this girl, 55 pounds heavier, black suits, around a lot of different people than I am around today. First of all, the first pivotal point that really drove me was a closer relationship with our Creator. My faith played a huge part in that, number one. The second thing was getting to the point of the goal that I had set 10 years before, right? The status, the recognition, the money, and realizing I felt a lot of emptiness and a lot of misalignment to passion and purpose. And then the third thing around that time, as things started to transform and happen, like specifically in that time frame, there was a lot more pivotal points about 2-3 years later that I'll also get into in a sec, was I got offered a promotion to get 1.5 times my salary and move back to Houston and start traveling again. And for the first time in my life, I declined a promotion, which the CEO, the CFO were shocked through the results I'd gotten. They thought it was a done deal. So that was one big thing, which led into prayer, me getting a position as a Georgia State University professor in accounting, another project about 6 months later that confirmed it was time for me to leave corporate. And then a key pivotal point a few years later as well that ties into that was a best friend getting sick from cancer, Janelle, that was like a sister, that we started businesses together. We started nonprofits together. We traveled the world together along with a close friend of mine, Angela, and Lindsay and I. And also along that time frame was when I really got serious about my wellness journey and really started to look in the mirror and say, am I really playing full out? Am I really pursuing passion and purpose? So I know I kind of skipped along into 1, 2, 3 pivotal points and timeframes. So I want to pause there because I'm sure your brain, your listeners are thinking like, whoa, that's a lot. So you could see how I radically relate to a lot of people are walking through right now.
That makes a lot of sense. Like there's a lot with what I've seen that you're involved with. There's a lot of different aspects. Obviously you have your journey, like you just mentioned. You have a lot of background in branding, accounting, a little of everything. And you have some impressive things on your resume in terms of companies that you've worked with. So how did it all come together to create your company that you're working like at and for now?
Absolutely. Yes. Even when I look back myself all the time, or when I write my story, when I'm sharing on the blog or the show, I'm just like, which also has me honor, people like you, Celia, people that are listening, people that will listen. We all have a story. And when we really start to dig into our story and extract the value out of it, and when we honor our story, and turn it from victimhood into a victor, and when we honor others, like everyone has value. So I want to mention that first, especially because people are walking through a lot of painful things right now that I want to be very, very mindful and aware of. And so how it came about. So all that was happening in my life that I shared. And then in 2013, I start getting super serious about athleticism and super serious about my wellness. And that started with me getting introduced through a really good friend of mine, Isabel. At the time, we'd been friends like 20 plus years, into Herbalife Nutrition. I had tried all kinds of things in wellness before, trained with 5+ trainers, like nothing aligned. The first month, I lost over 15 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like this tastes amazing. And for the first time in my life, like it's easy. And I started changing and replacing habits. And then I decided to do an Olympic distance triathlon for the first time in my life. I had done century events, all kinds of things, but decided to do an Olympic distance try. Then into that was when Janelle got sick. And I dedicated that triathlon to her. And got super sick during the triathlon, but I knew it was nothing. Like I swam in the Potomac. If you know anything about the Potomac, it's not the cleanest river in the world. Got super sick, finished the try, but knew it was nothing compared to what Janelle was walking through with chemo and radiology. She passed away at the end of that year. I'm a big believer in miracles, but I also knew it wasn't up to me. So I can relate to what a lot of people are walking through now with COVID. And really, as I started to reflect, and I wasn't doing wellness entrepreneurship then. I was an American Institute CPA national speaker, and I was running a consulting company, and I was teaching accounting. So like what you see today didn't exist. But when she passed, and when I started to lose more and more weight, and then I decided I always wanted to inspire through fitness in some way. I decided at the end of that year to do a fitness show. I teamed up with Team Edge. I love Ingrid and Joe. Lost over 55 pounds into the next year. Did my first show. So imagine from the boardroom to bikinis.
That's a big difference. Quite a big difference.
Boardroom and black suits, you guys, to bikinis on a Las Vegas stage. So it blew my whole brain. Okay. My best friend flew up to see me, lost over 55 pounds in that year. So disclaimer, the average person loses a half a pound to a pound a week. Disclaimer, it's not typical, not possible. But that year, my business started to blow up on Facebook just from me sharing my story, right? So I'm still a speaker, I'm still a consulting company, but I started to receive these divine downloads that I'm supposed to create an all-in-one lifestyle brand. Like all these past experiences in, strategy, in finance, in operations are designed for a purpose. Nothing's ever wasted. And I'm supposed to create this all-in-one lifestyle brand with tips, tools, and tech included, with health, wealth, and biz, online and live. And you can imagine it's like, what does that even mean? That's version 1.0 back in 2015 and creating, fundraising events like nothing would exist today in 2020. So I'm going to pause there because I know I gave you a lot.
You did give me a lot. And for those who are tuning in, your company is Fit Life Creation, which takes all of the things that you just took, like we're talking about, and brings them all together. You have the fitness, you have the personal wellness, you have the business, and especially because a lot of people who are looking to build their brand don't have all of these different business backgrounds that, you've gone obviously through and learned from in your life.
Absolutely. It's been crazy. I mean, everything from I think back to my first, I was literally writing down stuff in my journal, writing in my upcoming book. Everything from my first job ever was at Popeye's Fried Chicken. Okay. 3 weeks. I was like, oh, hell no. Have all the respect in the world for people that choose or stay in those professions. But I was just no, there's more. So, everything from that into being a hostess a couple months at IHOP in the beginning, working at Kroger for years in high school, into oncology, working at an oncologist office in high school. Yeah. So that's where a lot of my desire to give back for cancer came from, because I felt face to face with it with a lot of people. Then into going to college and undergrad and grad school, I worked through banking. So everything in risk management, credit, lending, so many different things, into retail, into education, into consulting, into oil and gas, into wellness. So you can imagine, I was also on NBC Apprentice season 4, the preseason. So you can imagine, even my own brain, when I think about this stuff, I'm like, oh my God, the humbling or the honoring of the gifts, talents, and abilities, but also Celia, so much along that journey, there was a lot of character refinement that needed to happen in every direction.
Of course. And each of them was their own learning experience. I know from my background, I worked for a real estate agent in high school, which is not the typical real estate. Real estate is not a typical job for a high school student. But I learned about customer service. I learned about, advertising, branding, why it's important to keep up your connections and all of those things. And then I went into working events, Sweet 16s, working with small businesses. And you learn a lot from each of these different experiences, especially with what I do. I go in and I work with a small business. I find out what their pain points are and how I can help and all of these different things. And since everyone is going through something different, everyone has these little things that you can learn from and you can grow from there, which is amazing.
Absolutely. And to your point, from the second I met you, even on the post on the plug, right? Shouting out the plug. That's amazing. You're so organized. You're so focused. And I was like, yes, I don't know who this is. I love her opportunity, but I know her. And then the first time, then going back and forth on email, you tell, you apply so much of what you learn. Then, to your point with the real estate background, again, what you said, that's not a typical role in high school, just a lot of what I shared and at all. But it teaches you different levels of service, of professionalism, of serving first, of giving value first, and not focusing on the money or making it a transaction first.
Definitely. The biggest thing, and especially what I've been talking about a lot in this time that everyone's, home, is you need to make sure that there is value in what you're creating, value in your posts, even if it's just a little tidbit of information that someone can learn, or, value can be a lot of different things. Value can be something along the lines of just making someone feel good for a second. Everyone's home, or everyone's on the front lines, and they're living a difficult life right now. And if you could take 3 seconds in your post, in your, whether it's written, photo, video, whatever it is, to make someone smile for a second, That's amazing. And that is I don't know. It's just a very important thing that people need to realize, because posting just to post is just, not going to help you out in the long run.
No, and to your point, I love that you brought that up, because like you said, number one is value. Like, where and how are you adding value, or where are you planting seeds today? And where are you creating relationships today that can lead to something else, but that's not your intention. Your intention is to be love and light. And then it's thinking about, we have all these platforms for free, Instagram Live for free, Facebook for free. And people feel now more than ever, if you're just focused on superficial, and you're just focused on what's in it for me versus what's in it for us, it's a very different thing. And what's happening in today's, climate, in today's pandemic, in today's environment, I believe that more and more and more people and brands are going to be shifting to substance, value, and community.
I agree. I think that everyone goes through different evolutions in their message on their pages. I know that the original reason I started my page was just educating people on what I do, because the biggest thing is, I would say I'm a videographer, and people would be like, oh, I'm not getting married yet, but I'll remember you. And I'm just like, that is not at all what I do. I work with businesses. I work with influencers. I work with I still do weddings, but I don't actively look for weddings. So like the reason that I created my page was for people to understand. But now that I've been like home, and like I've been trying to, shift my gears for the past couple months, actually, I just want to provide value. I want to inspire people to create, and I want to keep people, thinking positively. So, it's a lot about providing different kinds of value in whatever you're creating. And that's what's going to draw people in. And I mean, I've gained a couple hundred followers in the past 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's definitely working.
No, to your point, exactly 1,000% I align to that. Like, even like, like I created a couple weeks ago, the IGTV Create With Us Summit, and it's booked now till June. Or even like planting seeds for things like inspiring travel now and future, and other things. You can either look at this as completely, be stuck in the what don't you have, or you can be focusing on innovation and inspiration.
I would say that, and connecting with people. Connecting with people is huge, because especially if you're thinking in the realm of, I want to grow my brand, or I want to grow my page, or whatever it may be. I've realized, like, there was a point in time where like people would send me DMs and stuff, and I'm like, But now I'm realizing that like I can make connections. Like, for instance, on what was it, Tuesday, I was talking to someone who runs a program up in Boston for people who are underrepresented in the film industry, and teaches them how to create and navigate the industry. So I was speaking on their class on Wednesday. So it really can connect you and lead to amazing things.
Oh no, absolutely. You make me think of also, like, besides the plug, just recently, like, posting some travel and different things, opportunities on Matador, where people have been responding all the time. Tomorrow being part of like She's Wonderful Summit in the travel space. And like next week connecting with, it's interesting, I mentioned the triathlon, but connecting with like one of the lead directors for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society next week to basically create online summits, online things for value, along with wellness to help them fundraise.
That's amazing. And that's so many different, opportunities to connect with people and affect people, whether it's directly or, give them ideas to do things in their life. So that's one of the biggest things right now. I feel like, whether it's just, hopping into a networking meeting, reaching out to someone that you may not usually talk to, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's, someone that you have seen from afar and have been following for a while. It's all about building that relationship and that communication, because communication is huge.
Like you said, like even how we met, or even like as you were talking, I was thinking of, like, for example, so many communities, obviously ours as well. Like we have all kinds of press features, collaborations, freebies, blogs, podcasts, all the things. But even like I was thinking, like Speaker Hub recently like mentioned a virtual summit that they're doing. where people can apply as speakers. Like that might be something, you know, you're interested in, obviously on the videography side. They just posted it. Then so many other communities, like I'm thinking of Shirley with Brain Trust. Don't say Brian, Brain Trust. There's so many opportunities that are being created. And like yesterday I connected with We Travel, Retreat Guru, or, you know, today hosted on our series with the Create With Us, with wellness, with Coach Shoshana. But there's so many things if you look for them. And like you said, whether it's DM, whether it's an influencer marketing platform, whether it's a speaker hub, you know, there's so many ways that you can connect now more than ever. This morning I was on a call with the Buckhead Business Association, like so I mean there's a lot if you open up your mind and see the ways to connect.
Definitely. I basically decided, hey, I'm going to work on brand awareness during, you know, what's going on with coronavirus, because I'm home, I have the time. Now's the time to, you know, work on your brand. And that included doubling my posts on Instagram. It included starting this show, which has been amazing. I've learned so much just from this show, from having different people on. I believe this is episode like 33. And like the fact that this is episode 33 since coronavirus started, like it's been crazy. But all of these things have opened up so many doors because I'm providing value. People are responding and people are trying to, you know, get a hold of me now.
No, I love that you said that, because to your point, even like when you told me that you were running the show 7 days a week, I was like, well, like some people I know are introverts, some people are extroverts, you know, so this is affecting them in different ways, right? And I'm an ambivert. So people, yeah, and we talked about this, like people, in case you don't know what that is, people think when they meet me, I'm an extrovert because they're like, oh, you're so on. And I'm like, no. I'm on now, but after I leave you, I'm like,
I need a nap.
Taking a nap, especially today, because today's been like on. But
I had a bunch of phone calls today that were supposed to be 10-minute phone calls that were like 40 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, I need to go live in 20 minutes.
My last live was 2 hours and I love her. I love Shoshana, but I was like, and so there's that, right? So some people are affected by, they're like, hey, I love being inside all the time. You're introverts, right? But then you have your extroverts who are like, I need people. And like for me, I kind of love both because like opportunities like this, you know, lend itself to connecting. And similar to you, like in the last month, we produced like over 15 blog posts, over 30 podcast features and episodes. So it's been like the awareness component. It's been, okay, how can we create more value? How can I connect more? Like having our virtual assistants via OK Relax. Shout out to OK Relax. They're amazing. Literally giving them tasks like, hey, give me all the LinkedIn contacts for HR in Fortune 500 companies. Give me all, you know, here, boom, boom, boom. Then follow up with them, you know, via the messenger. Then give me all the marketing contacts for travel bureaus so we can connect on some opportunities there. Because it's like you said, we're home. I'm home. Why not? All the events are canceled. All the gatherings are canceled. All this is I can't do. But what can I do? I have all this time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing over here too. But we actually got a really interesting question. So it says, how does one build traction and new followers to his or her social media platforms? So let's talk a little bit about strategy. What are your top strategy tips?
Do you want to mention it first or do you want me to go?
We can take turns.
Okay. Do you want me to go first or do you want to
go? Doesn't matter. Up to you. You're the guest.
So this is near and dear to my heart. And I think it is, I know it is to yours too, Celia. So a couple of things on this. So number one is back to what we've been saying. Align with passion and purpose, be who you are, and create value. And understand that content and entrepreneurship and timing, it's a long-term game. You may all of a sudden today get 10, 20, 100, 1,000 followers. I'm not saying you won't. However, when your focus is creation and value, all that will come. And the key is consistency as well. And you want to align things like, you know, your hashtags, your content themes. You can look at Celia's page. Like she said, she isn't solely a wedding videographer. She's like, I'm focused on wellness, business, marketing, and travel, but I also share things about money, which obviously relate to that. Then like using your hashtags. And then my last point on that is, before I pass it on to Celia, is recently on our podcast, ironically, I did a full social media series where I shared, an influencer marketing series, where I shared things on platforms, on automation, on creating community. Like Celia and I are a perfect example of this. We are on a number of platforms, not just Instagram, not just Facebook, not just Pinterest. We're in communities like The Plug, and we always mutually, both of us, like in different ways, create collaborations. So this is happening as a result of that.
Definitely. Those are all amazing points. And I'm gonna sum up a couple of things that I've discovered even in recent weeks with those points, and then I'll add a couple more. So with what you were saying about like creating the value and creating like what you're passionate about, I would say that's the number one thing, because, you know, it doesn't feel like a job when you are creating things that you're passionate about. Like the fact that I'm making 2 posts a day on my main account, I'm doing a live web show on Facebook, I'm making sure it goes on to all of like LinkedIn and all of these other places, and making sure that all of that's happening. And I even have a second like Instagram for like my business, and then I made it complicated for myself and post a whole row at a time. It all takes a lot. So if I didn't like the content I was creating and I wasn't excited to do it every day, it wouldn't come out as genuine as it's currently coming out. So if you don't have your heart in it, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for you to actually create that valuable content for people to resonate with. I would like to add that the biggest thing is to create a community around what you're posting. So what I do in my community is I try and keep positive. I try and make people like think outside of the box, to be creative, and, you know, like just keep everyone together instead of just being like, hey, look at the thing I did. No, I try and get people to leave a comment. Like one of the things that I said the other day is like, what are you wearing while you're home for coronavirus? And a bunch of people said, oh, I'm wearing sweatshirts, I'm wearing like sweaters, I'm wearing all these different things. And that gives a sense of community. So community is a huge thing. And like that comes from both taking the effort to, you know, reach out to people, comment, like their posts, as well as, you know, hoping that people are just going to come and see you.
No, that's so amazing. And like, you made me think of so much wisdom in that. You made me think of like 3 things there. Like you said, like what you're wearing. So one of the reasons I created the IGTV thing was like, oh, this is great value, but guess what? It's going to make me get dressed and blow dry my hair like 4 days a week.
That is literally one of the reasons for this web show.
That was like the 2 thoughts in my brain, right? So it doesn't surprise me that you relate to that, obviously. Then the other thing was like one of the reasons why we created like our creator series, which obviously you're going to be on as well, was like, how can I create more community around, like, you know, around Fit Life Creation, around Create With Us, all the things. I was like, oh, I love like-minded people. I love people that are on a transformational journey. Let me feature them on the blog and the show, because everyone loves to be featured, right? Like everyone wants to be seen and heard. And
I love to be featured, so, you know, I know you love to be featured. Everyone loves to be featured. I don't think there is one person out of like 50 people that I've asked to be on this show that said that they weren't interested. But it wasn't because they didn't want to be featured. It was because they're not comfortable on camera.
Yeah, 2 different things, 2 very different things. And maybe at some point they will be. Because Lord knows I used to not be this comfortable on camera. Like, well, you should have seen my first videos. I had a blue backdrop. You had been cracking up. I was like, oh my God, I don't talk like this in public. Why am I so retarded right now? Like, it's a journey. And the other thing you made me think of, like tomorrow I'm part of a virtual travel day. She's wonderful. And you know, I took it upon myself, like, you know, an added point to his question, and like what you said, and like going to other people's pages and commenting, spotlighting other people, sharing stories about other people. Like, it's the golden rule. So I took it upon myself to create stories for every single speaker, you know, as part of like my media for them. and tag everyone in stories. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And it's like, that's how I would want to be treated. So that's what I'm doing with them.
Mm-hmm. That's the same with me over here. And the really awesome part is once you feature someone and have someone on a show like this, you have like a deeper connection with that person. The amount of prep time that goes into it, which some people think we just hop on here, but no, we get to know each other. We find out what's going on with them. You know, we make sure that we understand their business through the conversation and everything, or whatever it is that they're doing. And, you know, we get to know them. And that's a lasting connection. That's a lasting friend that you're going to have. And, you know, whether it's a business decision or just a personal decision, it's a great thing to like I said, bring together a community.
No, you just hit on the biggest word that I always say that I realized when I was creating and becoming became a full-time entrepreneur. I was like, I don't want to have separate personal life and separate work life. I want people to feel like community and friends, because I allowed that to shift after I left college. And I was like, I don't want that anymore. I don't want things to be about just a transaction or money. Like, been there, done that. Like, that for me, and I think for most people, does not feel good.
Yeah, I was taking a business course, and what the guy said is his mentors, like this is a not so direct quote, but basically said, if it's not someone that I would go and have dinner with, it's not someone I want to go and, you know, work with, because having that mutual respect and that communication is key for whatever business that you're in.
Yep, absolutely. And it's having that open door where, hey, maybe this doesn't align now. Maybe we will in the future, because we're always evolving. But to your point, I pay, and I know you do too, massive attention to how people communicate on comments, on DMs, on emails. Like, if it is misaligned, rude, disrespectful, it's like, hey, love you, mean it. I get it. You're going through something, but you know what? I don't have to take that on. I don't have to take it personal. And I don't really have to do things with you.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's a big part of it is mutual respect, because obviously, like, I know with our emails, there's like 15 bullet points and like such. And like, whenever we're having a conversation, I want to sit down, concentrate on the email, and give you the same respect that I know you're giving me. And that's one of the biggest things I feel like a lot of people have lost. I would say before the virus, and it's starting to come back now, because people are forced to communicate through whatever medium it is, to, you know, have that back and forth from afar, because they're not in the same room. They're not doing a one-on-one meeting at Starbucks. They have to do it through, a lot of the time, text, because a lot of people aren't hopping on Zoom calls. A lot of people are, but they're not comfortable with it.
No, I love it. I love that you said that. And I love that you brought up our conversations, because at first it started with like the show, right?
Yeah.
Of course, like, both of us are focused on abundance, on value, and community. So of course I was like, well, you're offering this. Well, hey, I have all this to offer, right? And then, like, initially I think it was like the creator series and the live. But then when we talked, I was like, oh my God, like, you're so smart. You're so brilliant. And I call our conversations and our emails, like I told you, the beautiful brain. Like, not everyone can do it, but like a lot of us can, right? And I love what you said. Like you said, you want to give the other two things that came to mind. Anyone feels the most valued when you read, and when you listen, and when you honor someone. And I am definitely guilty. We're all guilty of dishonoring myself, of dishonoring others. But now that is always at my forefront, especially over the last 7 years. Like, you know what? Maybe this aligns, maybe this doesn't. But I am going to do my best to pay attention, to value, to give attention to this person. And whether they respond favorably or not, I'm still going to release it and still, like, send them off with love, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying. It's one of those things where, like, the longer that you do business and the longer that you're trying to grow, you learn things. And one of the things is, you know, not everyone's your competition. You know, it's better to work in a collaborative space. And especially if you're trying to grow a brand, like, collaborations is the best way to do it. Because, for instance, you're going to be on my socials with this. I'm going to be on your socials. And we're going to pool our resources to build.
Absolutely. And to your point, like it's choosing to see the positive and everything, and it's choosing to like respond with grace. Cause even I know a lot of people are in different headspaces right now, right? They're dealing with depression, anxiety, you know, they're at different points in their journey in life and business, right? But earlier today, even in one situation maybe that wasn't so easy or wasn't joyful, or, you know, it went down one trail, but then it kind of came back. And I was just like, hey, you know, we shared all this, we like, etc. Maybe you missed it, maybe you didn't, maybe it's a great fit, maybe it's not. But by the way, here's like several other resources that you may want to look into that weren't even ours. Like they were other resources. Because again, I believe in giving value and sending with love and saying, okay, like obviously this person's going through something. Yeah, absolutely. Teamwork is so important.
100%. And I have a question for you, because a lot of people that I work with in the business space, they don't really think about collaborations. They don't really, you know, kind of put it as a priority, especially because a lot of times businesses don't prioritize advertising, which is, I would say, a mistake, because, you know, advertising, especially with social media, with brands, and especially influencer like advertising, is such a big thing right now. Like, what would you advise a typical business, a brick and mortar, on what they should be doing in this new online space?
You're speaking my language from so many ends. Like so many, I was receiving so many divine downloads to share as you were sharing. I was like, oh my God, this is such a powerful question. And you're 100% right. A lot of it has to do with just to kind of, and I know you know this, but just to kind of frame, you know, the position for listeners. Our culture, especially, and has been traditionally very kind of individualistic. And of course, that's not everyone. You know, of course, I'm not by no way, shape, or form am I stereotyping. However, when you look at, for example, social media, traditionally, a lot of people have been focusing, say, on solo travel or on solo fashion or on me, which there's nothing wrong with that. We all want to be seen and heard. However, when you look at other cultures, like I've traveled to 27 plus countries, I was in 4 countries by the time I was 2. So my frame of reference is very different. You know, I was the girl in Bulgaria at the age of 5 that's running around, you know, the playground, doesn't speak the language yet, but guess what? I'm making friends. Like that's my nature. And I believe that's who we all are when you go back to childhood, right? You go to Japanese cultures, you go to a lot of different cultures around the world. Their first focus is community. Their first focus is we. How can we all win? Like I want to frame all of that, right? First. The other thing is, and definitely when I walk through over 7 industries, you know, depending on my boss, depending on the culture of the company, some were more community focused, some were not. A lot of that I got the opportunity to shift. And that's my like second example for giving some tips. Then the third point I wanted to share is when I was in college, starting nonprofits, doing different things, that's where really like my purpose and alignment started to shine. This was years before social media, years before influencer marketing. So this is something that I believe like I've been divinely like gifted with, because it's like a natural, and I used to take it for granted, and I don't anymore at all, is I naturally wanted to create community. I naturally wanted to create situations where everyone was winning, period. I'm winning, you're winning, everyone around us is winning. And so many times, and that's an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
So many times, and you know that so many times everyone's like, well, what's in it for me? And I definitely have walked through that too. I think we all have. When you're in a scarcity mindset, or when you're focused on what you don't have, it's what's in it for me? When am I going to get recognized? When am I going to get paid? Babe. And when I say that, I say that to myself.
I want to jump in with one point real quick. Yeah, for a while, like I had to bring myself around on that, because I was thinking in terms of, I'm a business owner, I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer. Like I can't be doing these things. I know people want to collaborate, but I can't be doing these things. I have to pay the bills. Like it took a while for me to realize that, you know, not everything is a paid job, but you know, if for instance you come across someone that needs help with a quick picture on something that they have a following of 15,000 people and they tag you, that can be a return in a different kind of currency. It would be a return on a following type currency rather than a monetary. So it took me a little bit to realize that that's more so what collaborations is. Like, we're taking the time out of our day to, you know, help each other, and, you know, it's gonna have a lasting impact.
No, 1,000%. I'm grateful that you brought that up, because to your point, like I was at one point in college, then I got focused on money, 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 status, 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 recognition, recognition, recognition. So same thing. I went full circle where it was like, wait a minute, the only currency or the only abundance isn't just money. It's the priceless things first. And when you give with your heart and when you give with passion and soul, the return may come right there, or it may come somewhere else. And then even to your point, it's like, even in our conversations, there's elements that are press related, but you can see even in conversations, they go from press eventually to profits.
Yeah.
100%. Like, path to profits. It's literally a path to profits. And that goes in everything. It's like, serve, you know, be in love with what you're doing and what you're creating. Serve, understand there's multiple facets of abundance, of community. And like you said, like, so many people are like, well, are you going to pay me first? Are you going to do this first? And I understand that, because that used to be me. Well, what's the offer? However, because it goes into, we're conditioned to think like that. And it's not easy to shift that.
Yeah. And definitely, like, for those who are tuning in, the question that I asked was like, why should businesses be working on, you know, building brands with collaboration and things like that, just in case, you know, they're tuning in now. I think that, you know, as a business owner, as someone that's trying to break into the influencer space, as someone, you know, who is in the middle of it all, like, you need to think about what your priorities and what your goals are, because that's the number one thing. Because if you're a brick and mortar business and your goal is to have 50,000 followers, your approach is going to be way different than if you're just trying to, you know, passively have things out. So when people search you, you know, you have something there. So I don't know, like, what's your thought on that?
No, that's great. I'm glad you circled it back, because I know we both went like different tangents. I was like, oh yeah, I had 2 more points. I was getting there. Sometimes I go around just to like set the foundation. So, couple things. And this goes into a lot of my experiences in the past, but also goes into my experiences in the present. So you guys heard like the past, like the industries, etc. But I want to share like from a social media and influencer marketing space. And I basically got into this space in a very deep level since 2016. When I saw the results on Facebook, you know, with wellness, I was like, oh my God, like, this is 25x. Imagine if this is me and a community of people doing this on Facebook and other platforms. Like, that was the seed that was planted, right? Then I started investigating, you know, platforms, like over 25 influencer marketing platforms, and creating our own. We have worked with over 15,000 influencers now in wellness, in marketing, in business, and in travel on over 15 platforms, and generated over 3,000% return on investment last year. And earned media alone, that's to Celia's point, that's earned media, what we would have paid for posts, but because we did it in collaboration, and reached over 700 million in reach last year into this year. Okay.
That's crazy. I wish I had that kind of reach, you know.
It's a lot of work, obviously.
Yes.
Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, that's a lot of work. But my goal was create community, create access, create collaboration, because I was reminded divinely of how I used to create community back in college. And now taking all this education, what I've learned from Herbalife, from Brendan Bouchard, from Shailene Johnson, from Rachel Hollis, like, I'm an avid student. Like, understand, I invest in my own education all the time. Period. Freebies, not freebies, everything. Like, I take the time. And so with that, there's several things. It's what we shared earlier about social media, about creating authentic content. So I'm going to take a couple of industries as examples. So for example, I used to work, let's take restaurants, right? I'm going to take like 2, 3, 4 industries as examples. Restaurants, whether like some of my favorite restaurants are Eat Flower Child, True Foods Kitchen. If I was working with you right now, or Celia, or if I was advising you, which say we're advising you.
Yes, because now I'm a restaurant owner.
Why are you not creating a cooking channel? Why are you not doing a show like Chopped? Why are you not creating virtual like masterminds, like an online course? Why are you not possibly then taking people like, so I'll mention one influencer we work with that I love, Ashley Renee. She has over 70,000 followers on Instagram. Why are you not inviting her to do tips on healthy eating? Why are you not working with a community like ours and or Celias or somebody else, it doesn't have to be ours, to help create all this buzz and exposure and integrate deliveries with Postmates? Full supply chain, boom, 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 boom. From create value, do Instagram lives, do stuff like this, create an online course, get paid for the online course, influencers to promote you, and then deliver. Boom. Which is something that I was already talking to a lot of restaurant owners before, but sometimes it takes a crisis for people to listen and be proactive and innovative and open. So that's like restaurant, right? Do you want
I like where you're going with that, but I feel like one of the biggest things with those kinds of concerns is people don't know how much to, for instance, charge for that kind of thing. Like, for instance, if I make a course and I'm a restaurant and I want to teach people how to make my food, how much do I sell that for? And things like that discourage people because it's hard to figure that kind of thing out these days.
I don't know. Super simple. Like for me, like, let me cross out that belief.
I mean, that's one of my biggest problems too, because like whenever I'm trying to do a brand deal, I do a lot of trade deals because I'm like, I don't know how much to charge for this. I know how much I would charge to shoot it, but that's not how much people want to pay for it for Instagram and whatever.
I understand what you're saying, and it goes to like the unknown, right? Like a lot of people have this fear of the unknown. Definitely been.
That's where I was going. Yeah.
Yep. Definitely been there. Definitely relate to that massively. But what I challenge myself always and anyone is, okay, simplify. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Look at someone that's done something, even if it's not related, and then literally mimic it. So for example, my advice on that would be, and this is literally what I've done and what we do, would be 2 points. One, start with free, right? Like a blog, a podcast, a show like this, right? Because people value. Then you can do like a simple entry level type thing, like, oh, $7 for, a 1 hour like webinar. But then you're getting $7 times like 100 or times 1,000, depending on how big your email is. Simple, done, right? That's point one. Point two is on the course side. And this is literally what I did and what we do. The brand side, that I learned and invested in courses and programs from Brendan Burchard and Shailene Johnson. Like I am big on giving credit in case you haven't picked that up. Like I didn't arrive here alone, and I always give credit like where I learned stuff. I looked at their strategy and structure and said, okay, you do this, this, and this. You start at your lowest price point of this. Like people always love, like I said, the $7 point. Then people always love an introductory offer. So like our introductory offer is $35. Boom, simple. Affordable, easy, like a week's worth of coffee at Starbucks, right? Boom. A monthly mastermind is $97. The reason why we did that is I learned from Brendan Burchard, people like things under $100. Then so you could do a monthly mastermind around cooking and eating healthy using this example. Then to your point, Celia, like on a course, like a week-long, month-long course with a bonus bundle plus like tools like, Herbalife supplements, meal bags, we price at $297. Then the next price point is $497, $997. Then you go into things like 3-month programs or a retreat, which is like $3,000.
Yep.
Then you transition. So you can see how everything's scaling from free.
Everything goes up.
Then you go into the side of the brand engagements, which on our brand engagements, we always start with free, like a free webinar or a free conversation, always free, value, relationship, connection, community. And it goes into, okay, do you want to engage us on wellness, media, or travel, or helping you create an online course across 1 month or 3 months or a year? Or do you want to go ahead and sign a multi-year agreement? And then at every level, you get discounts and more perks.
Yep.
So so does that help clear it up where it can be super simple?
I think it does, especially for like the business end of it. Like as a business owner, as someone that would want to provide the value, it does make sense and I think that's a lot of what a lot of people struggle with. They're trying to figure out like, well, I want to make this thing and I'm giving away a ton of free information. How do I monetize this? Because yeah, I know I give away a bunch of free information, but it's the surface level information.
Yeah.
Like if you add, like me and you have had conversations, like you've heard me talk very in depth about strategy and this and that, but I'm not going to bore someone by talking about influencer strategy for like 2 hours unless like that's something that they very much want to hear. And someone in the comments is going to be like, we want to hear it. And maybe I should do a webinar, but it's one of those things where like, you could give away a bunch of stuff, but if you give away like too much, you're just squandering that value. But you also need to think about where that line is and continue to engage and keep people invested.
Absolutely. And I want to address 2 points back to your question that I think is super valuable for you and others. Because now I talked about the brand side, right? But you specifically mentioned the influencer side. Yeah. Because as you know, we work, with influencers because I know also like my background is CPA, my background is strategy and corporate, but I know most people that work in social media and influencer, that's not their background. And then it comes into the fear of the unknown, comes into the fear of confidence, all those things.
So yeah, I feel like it's a lot of the reason why people are like, no, I can't do that. Like I want to, but I can't.
Exactly. So to your point, the first part I gave the pricing, but that can also apply to influencers. But then the other component of that is then saying, okay, like basically like when I'm thinking of like, influencer side, I'm thinking of like influencer management, like some of what we've talked about, like, helping to prioritize collaborations. And even when you're proposing a brand, it's still saying, okay, here's first what I can offer. And then, tell me like what maybe promotional things can you offer or what's your budget, like being very soft with that conversation. But in the background, having that, okay, you as an influencer or entrepreneur know, okay, this is what I charge, like say per post, right? Or per video. This is what I charge per IGTV, or this is what I charge for this, but then present, okay, I can do a one-off a la carte. But if you don't want to do that, and what I recommend is make bundles, have 3 or 4 bundles where you're saying, hey, I'll put you on a show. I'll give you IGTV. I'll give you 3 posts. I'll give you 10 stories. I'll give you, a blog. I'll give you a podcast. So you make a bundle just like we do on the brand side for a month. I'll give you a bundle for 3 months. I'll give you a bundle for a year because literally most brands or a lot of brands, I feel like, especially with this and after this, are going to be going to long-term relationships because that's where the ROI is. And it's the same thing as you've seen deeply, Celia, on the collaboration side. You can see on our collaborations, they start with, an IG Live.
Yep.
Or a press feature. But then they go deeper into the mastermind, deeper into a club, deeper than into, okay, Celia, great. You've provided all this value. You've provided all these results. You've provided all this service. You've shown all this professionalism. You've gotten all this profit sharing. You're working with us with this brand, Guess what? Now we have an opportunity where this brand is engaging us to help them create online courses, to do this, to do that. Guess what, Celia? You're my girl.
Yeah, I totally see where you're going. And I know that like for a lot of people, especially like in, my age range in their 20s, they don't have this business background. I mean, I'm like an oddball. I have a business background, but my business background is I know that, the video that they want is going to take 3 hours to shoot, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to shoot it this way, and I'm going to edit it, and it's going to take this long. I know that end of it. But, coming up with like a price for a post, something that I just go and I do, like that's always been like the thing that everyone gets tripped up on.
And it literally just starts, it's like, what I always say is like, start simple. Like literally say, okay, I'm going to charge 100 or 300. It's like, you're kind of like, and you're like, Influencer Marketing Hub is another great resource that I started playing 3 years ago, where I would like plug in different people's and see what they would price the media at, right? Because everyone's figuring it out. Like influencer marketing or social media didn't exist 10, 20, 30 years ago.
I also feel like, and I say this about the coronavirus every day, and I say it every day on the show, and I feel like I didn't say it today, but there's no rule book. Every day I say there's no rule book.
There's not. Like literally, it's like make up your own, like everything that I've been telling you. Hello, like I said, like this is all divine downloads that I've received. I'm receiving all the time. I'm like implementing it. I'm figuring it out. I'm pivoting, like whatever. Like my rule book is our creator. That's my rule book. And then I'm like, okay, either you align or you don't. Moving on.
I get you. And that's a lot of what I've been doing and figuring out and working on during this pandemic because, you know, I have the time to invest in this and I'm not running from shoot to shoot. So why not start some lives? Why not reach out to people? Why not work with a couple of brands? Like, for instance, today I posted something with Quest Nutrition, which is great. And yeah, so that's amazing. But you know, it's about taking those first steps to look for someone to collaborate with, to network, to, you know, look through your own like emails and figure out who would be great. Because like I said, this is episode 33. I've collaborated with 33 people for at least a 45-minute conversation on my social media. They share it on their social media. Maybe they didn't have a big following and maybe they got a couple of leads. And all of that is great. And all of that comes with, you know, putting in the time, putting in the effort, and making that communication.
No, absolutely. And to your point, you made me think of, and I know we traded emails on this, like the city of New York, like with collaborating with the New York governor. And it's not a paid collaboration. It's focusing on safety and awareness. But to me, it was something that's relevant. It's aligned to passion and purpose. And it's a way I want to serve. And, you know, and they're like, it may lead to something, but that's okay, even if it doesn't. And the same with like a mask company, you know, Rush Order Teas. It's like, hey, this is something we need right now. Why not like add value and make a connection in some way?
Yeah, and the most interesting thing is that companies that you wouldn't think of are the ones that are like working with influencers. Like one of my friends is doing something with like a frozen vegetables company, like frozen vegetables. I buy frozen vegetables all the time. Like I should have just been like, who's your contact at the frozen vegetables company? But like,
you know what, you just know, I did a collaboration a couple years back with Simple Truth and with Kroger. And actually, that's a great point. Like, hey, let me follow up with them to be like, hey, like I did this video, I did this. Like, are you guys doing anything special or do you want to?
Yeah, I started keeping different folders in my email with like contacts, collaborations, and people that want me to review like products to actually like review them. Because that's another thing that that is an interesting avenue because people see me working with photo video products. Someone was like, hey, I want you to test out our gimbal and I want you to, you know, make some content both with it and about it. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they were like, do you want this free gimbal? And I was like, yes, I want the free gimbal.
I love that you brought it up because here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. And I realized this early on when I was in college or different places. Through an experience, you can learn something that's priceless. So you might not get paid, but you didn't pay to learn. You got to learn for free because of the opportunity, number one. Number two, if you treat something like it's paid, guess what? Someone else is going to see that and they're going to think you were paid and then see what you can do. Next thing you know, you have a brand deal or a big project. Perfect.
And that's how I got the gimbal because I posted my YouTube videos on Amazon because the YouTube videos were talking about, oh, this is one of my favorite products for shooting XYZ. I use it all the time. And then I posted it on Amazon onto like the video portion of that product. And then someone reached out and said, hey, we saw you got what kind of stuff you're doing with reviews. We would love for you to review this.
Perfect example. Like you give to share authentically something that you love. So do what you love, but share what you love. Like you would tell your best friend about your favorite pair of shoes. I got, I'm also you reminded me, I'm also an Airbnb community manager for Atlanta.
How did that happen? That's amazing. Like you mentioned that and I was like, that's a really interesting, different thing that you would never really think about.
So number one, it's also unpaid. So some people might think, oh, it's Airbnb or it sounds fancy. No. Let me just bust that bubble. So how it happened was starting in 2016, when like around 2015, 2016, I started using Airbnb avidly. And I love the concept. I love having like the local experience. When we launched our retreats to Cuba, to Costa Rica, I was thinking about doing all inclusive, but I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't fit because our retreats are transformational. It's taking people away on wellness to create what they love. So I was like, oh, an Airbnb villa is perfect. This is perfect. So I met our Costa Rica retreat. The owner ended up living in Atlanta. I ended up meeting her and her child and her husband, and so many other incredible global experiences. So I already loved the brand, right? Was already using them for business, personal business, everything. Then fast forward to a couple years later, they start rolling out the experiences, right? Because they have the platform, they have the people. They're like, oh, we can do experiences globally. So I got on experiences in Atlanta because I was like, oh, I'm already doing this. I can create an Airbnb experience and social media and wellness, etc. Then they send an email. Hey, we're looking for an unpaid community manager. It's going to be super simple. You manage the Facebook community group, a couple times a week, and you get to create meetups. So I was like, boom, I love Airbnb. I love passion. I love purpose. It's in alignment. I love creating community. Mm-hmm. Let me sign up. I actually had to send videos of talking about my passion, my purpose, why I love community. Connect with Ashley. Ashley's amazing. Fast forward 6 months into me being, the leader. I got selected. I got chosen. Fast forward into me hosting 2 meetups, literally. And they then started launching Airbnb Adventures. I got hosted along with a whole bunch of other people on an Airbnb adventure in Mexico this past December. So just like an influencer, but in a different way. And I created media that entire trip. Exactly like it was a paid collaboration. I created 180 days of content for our mastermind.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. The focus and the clarity was crazy. I did 3, 4, 5 blog posts. I did 1 guides and more that I shared everywhere because I'm like, I'm treating this. 1, I love it, period. I don't care if I am not paid for this. 2, I'm planting the vision for the future that anyone that sees this can see what I can do.
Yep. And that's what I'm doing right now. It's not with Airbnb and I'm not in Mexico, but I could do it from my house.
That's what I'm doing now. I'm not in Mexico. I'm in Atlanta in my house.
Yeah. And I want to get into one more topic because I know we could be on here all day. And I we probably could be here all day, just keep going and back and forth and whatever. But I want to talk a little bit about, the mindset of branding a bit. So we're going to keep this in the realm of working with a business. Because I know a lot of my viewers are business people that work at a business. I know that I would love to talk to you for hours and hours about influencer this, influencer that, whatever. But let's talk about business. What are a couple things that you think that people should consider when they're working on branding their business? Because I'm going to tell you my top 3, and then we can kind of go back and forth on it. So the first one is, what is your message? Who is your audience? And what problems do you guys have currently, at least with my part in video, that we can work on with content?
So those are your questions or your pivotal points, right?
Those are what I start the conversation with because it's a conversation, definitely.
Absolutely. So I want to mention things from 2 angles. So one, I want to mention something from the brand side, and then I want to mention the point of the connection, which is what you exactly just did. From the brand side, and it's funny because I literally just posted in your chat, I did a post on this morning, right? Mm-hmm. That from the brand side, what I've learned, so keep in mind, again, I've walked through, so if you're in retail, if you're in oil and gas, if you're in education, I've walked through that. So I understand,
I just put it in the comments so they can get to it.
I've seen the background and I understand the previous logic of marketing and branding of, let's make our brand look professional. And I get that, excellence, etc. But more and more and more, people are resonating with a brand that has a mission, a vision, a passion, and a purpose. Okay, great, you do clothing, but is your clothing sustainable? How are you inspiring the world? How are you giving back? More and more and more people are looking for that. Right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Is it authentic? Mm-hmm. Sharing with authenticity that where it's not super polished. It's not super, is it real? Mm-hmm. Which crosses over obviously into influencer marketing and why it does so well in a lot of spectrums, right?
Yeah. Before you go forward, I want to just give a quick example. There was a company that reached out to me in a DM and was like, hey, like, can you give me a shout out or anything, whatever? And I usually read those and I'm like, no, I don't care. But I clicked onto the page and I was like, oh, wow, this is an Army vet who's making beard products for guys and he's donating to mental health and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, oh, this seems like a great brand, a great company. Like I had a little bit of a conversation with them and I was like, oh, like I'll take a couple of pictures for you. You could come on my show. Like we can discuss. You have a great message and I would love to, like, you know, continue this dialogue. And that's just because they are carrying themselves as a positive brand and a positive, I guess, community member.
Yep. Because to your point, it could be one of three brands, right? You could be one of three brands. You could be the brand, like some of the brands I've worked with in the past. It's super focused on polishing, not really talking about the CEO and who the leader is at all, and really no mission focus. It's like, hey, buy this, sell this for me, boom. That used to work. That's working less and less, in case you haven't noticed, especially with over 20 million people filing unemployment.
Yeah, you're right.
Just saying. That would be my message to brands, to like, let's wake up, guys. We've got tons of problems in the world. Let's start solving them.
Yeah, and they can just solve a lot of their problems by reallocating some of their funds to advertising at this point, because, you know, getting in front of your audience, having someone as a representative, even if it's someone that is an actor that you hire as the person, the face of your business to talk about this, it should be the business owner. It should be someone that's actually there, but it's someone to reassure like the community that you're still open, you're still going, what your message is, how you're approaching it, and how you plan on going forward.
And then the last component, which we've touched on definitely, and you reminded me of one example of that recently, is community. How are you impacting the community? How are you creating a like-minded community? How are you creating a tribe around your movement? So even if that's retail, okay, well, how about right now you could be doing styling sessions online from your brick-and-mortar store online.
Yeah.
Like if I was in a secret again, I would be telling my regional and my district manager again, okay, guys, let's get online. Let's do a facial online. Let's do this online. I mean, that's some of what I'm going to be doing coming up, like with Herbalife and different things. But it's like, that's how you connect and relate. People want to relate. They want it real.
And that's why people need to think a little bit about how they're carrying themselves on social media. Because I know for me, I was like, everything needs to be perfect for the longest time. And I was like, no, everything needs to be genuine and everything needs to be like coming back to me, because, you know, I can't sit there and be like, all right, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to spit out information about cameras and I have to get it super perfect and drive my boyfriend crazy because he's the one helping me with this. And it's going to be a whole big thing where like we're both like getting all frustrated and I'm getting upset. That's not worth it. Just think about like being genuine. Like I'm like tripping up on a word or two every so often, but I'm thinking and I'm responding. That I'm being a person, you know, and this is how you get your personality into whatever you're doing.
So no, exactly, 100%. You reminded me. So speaking of Airbnb, recently, like Catherine, the new head of experiences, did like a video. CEO Brian, I think it was, did a video at home, and it was super genuine, super like, you know, connected. And it's like, okay, this is spot on, because this isn't, oh, you're some, you know, nothing against obviously videography or production, but this is super real. This is super raw. This is like, you know, this is connecting, right? And you just hit the nail on the head. It's like, where is the personality? Where's the person? Where's the real person? Where's the people? So that's from the brand side, right? And then go back to your questions just so everyone can hear it again.
I don't remember. I'm so bad at remembering my questions. I think it was more so about like, you know, why brands should be like, what we should be thinking about when working with brands.
Yep. So that's on the brand side, right? So thinking about that. So being an entrepreneur or being even a business, that if you want to work either with brands or if you want to work, like you heard, I work business to consumer, but I also work business to brands, just like Celia. So when I'm thinking or positioning myself as, oh, I'm a person and I want to connect with this, it's like I always think of, how can I serve? Is this something that aligns to my own values? Don't have values, figure out some and write them down. Like I have 7 governing values, like faith, creation, freedom, etc. So that's one component. And then think of like, realize everyone's always watching. Even if people don't comment, they're always watching.
Yes, they're always watching. And basically, like, one thing that I recently heard on I think it was a podcast or something similar, is like, people are noticing how you're carrying yourself, how you talk about yourself. And, you know, they're not sitting there thinking, oh, well, you know, they should have did a little bit different on that post, or, oh, like the lighting in that picture is bad. They're just seeing how you're treating yourself, how you are, like I said, carrying yourself. And that's the impression they're getting. It's nothing about like people are trying to like watch you go and burn and like do bad. It's just like, you know, it's about how you value yourself and what you're doing.
No, 1,000%. And to your point, like anyone that does think that just tells me, well, you're in a cycle of negativity and perfectionism. Love you, mean it, but guess what? I don't really care what you think anyway.
And that's something that a lot of people have to break out of, especially with brands and businesses, because, you know, it's their livelihood and they want to do well. But, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt. And I was talking to a class yesterday about content, and we were talking about follower count. And I was like, for a while I cared, but now like I just realized that like people come, people go, and like the people that want to see what you're doing are the ones that are going to be there, and there'll always be more. So there's a lot of, you know, self-valuing that you have to get through to.
No, your point, it's deciding, like, to me, I made a decision, like, I'm going to find my identity in the eternal and in the internal, period. Like you said, the external and the temporary is just that. It's fickle. It's unstable. And so I made a decision. It's like, it goes back to, if you're aligned to passion and purpose, you're consistent, you keep creating value, guess what? The people will come.
Yes.
Period.
Definitely. And I've done all the consistency and everything and tested that out. And like, the one thing that I keep saying is like, my like Facebook page, it has like 850 people, but my reach has gone up to like literal thousands from consistently going live and consistently posting. And, you know, it's not about the number there. I think more of impressions personally and video views. And the fact that I have on my video views in the past month, like gone up over, like, I think it was 1,100%. Like, you know, it really is about, you know, consistency, creating and keeping to it, because, you know, we're not lying when we say it's consistency that's key.
No, it's true, 100%. And to your point, we were sharing in the beginning, like doubling on the content, like same, our podcast has doubled in downloads this month, doubled. And it goes back to, if you keep showing up for you, guess what? Other people show up. Because the test is when no one's showing up, because you're the one who show up. If you're going to be a leader, you need to show up, period. And then you remind me, the third point I would give to influencers and brands is back to collaboration. So I am not part of just one community. I am part of, like I mentioned, I'm part of like different church communities. I'm part of Herbalife Nutrition. I'm part of Boss Babe Society. I'm part of The Plug. I'm part of over 15 influencer communities, like 20 Facebook communities. So
I need to get on more of this.
Like that, a lot of that grew over the last year, but it goes back to showing up, and it goes back to creating value. Like I don't show up to do things for myself. I comment, I engage, I contribute when it has nothing to do with me. But then I also learn and get opportunities like this or other people because of that. Yeah.
The 30 seconds you may have taken to, I think you put like 2 comments on my thing, has turned into like a lot of back and forth and potential business in the future, because, you know, even if you need like help with video questions, now you have someone to call. Hey, I'm trying to do this thing.
And when we talked this first time, you were like right away, like, what can I help you with? What can I do? Like, I was like, I love you. I love you.
I know that we could be on here forever, but let's come to like somewhat of a close. So do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with everyone? Because I know that we're definitely going to have you come back at some point, because like, me and you can probably go and spew information back and forth for like 5 hours and still have more things to talk about. But do you have any, you know, final resting thoughts that you think that would be great to share with the audience. And yeah, whenever you're ready.
So a couple of things that I want to share that came to mind, and this actually ties to one of the other communities I'm in, Tuesdays Together. If you're not part of Celia, side note, Honeybook and Rising Tide, you may Honeybook and Rising Tide, and they also have an educator program. Natalie Frank is amazing, speaking of creating communities. So I'm part of their community, and I'm doing a live for them next month, and actually to this that I'm about to share. Because immediately when we were talking, it was like, boom, share that. So it's centered around mental health, and it's centered around like progression and pivots and different things now. What you can be doing to be pouring love into yourself as well as your community. So the first thing I want to share is morning routine and what I call my sacred 7 that's gotten developed over time. So whether it's one thing, whether it's 7 things, whatever it is, wherever you are, your morning sets you up so powerfully for your day. Like I can tell you as someone that used to never have a morning routine 10 years ago, I was like a Cruella de Vil. Like if you remember Cruella de Vil from the Dalmatians and her driving down the street like crazy, that was me.
That's currently me. Okay. I have to get my morning routine done.
Okay. So put it together. My current morning routine is worship music, positive music, prayer, meditation, movement, journal, gratitude, and a positive message.
Awesome. Like, yeah, one of the things that I want to incorporate, I want to do, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I have you ever heard of the Evo planner? EVO?
The what?
The Evo planner.
I think so.
Basically what it is they have you take like a brain type test, and then it has you lay out the information in the way that makes the most sense for the way that you think. So part of that is,
I think I looked at it like a while ago, but I need to go back to that because it sounds familiar, but keep talking.
Yeah, I got one of them. And I like it's interesting because a lot of the things that you're mentioning, like gratitude and stuff, is part of what they, are advocating in their planner. Have that moment of like writing down something that you're thankful for. And like, what are the things that are a priority today? What are a secondary priority today? Yes. What's the thing that you're going to do for yourself today?
Like you're literally flowing into the conversation on the next 2 points I had, literally. I love how we flow. Did you want to add anything else to that?
No, I'm just mentioning that because, it's a really cool thing. And for people who are currently watching this, it is before Mother's Day right now, and they're doing a buy one, get one. So
that's awesome.
I think that you can use, they gave me a code that people can use. I believe it's my Evo 10, but I'll put it in the description.
That's awesome. So
I don't make any money on it. It's just a discount code that they gave out.
The second thing I was going to share in the third, which literally relates to that, is, for example, through my own process, I created my own journal as well, a creative journal. And in that, like I walk through on a daily basis. So is a 7 steps to success. And that ties into how I practice the 90-day plan. And that's in like our blog, our podcast, I have a guide, all the things. So every single day, and I is tracking a minimum of 3 actions in each of the 7 areas. And we do this anyway, but sometimes we're not aware of it. Spiritual, mental, emotional, relational, playful, physical, and financial. So are you taking actions? Are your beliefs, your feelings, and your actions aligned to where you want to go? And also thinking about from a business perspective, are you aligning your actions on a daily basis to make momentum in your business? Like a lot of what Celia and I have been talking about is momentum. So for example, also on a daily basis or weekly basis, I'm looking at like exactly what we talked about. Media, like how am I creating or how are we creating media? Online courses, our transformation tools, like events, influence management, and brands, and like that focus, like where are we moving and is it in alignment? Because if you're not thinking about those things, it's really easy to spiral down and not keep yourself focused on progress, like where you actually want to go.
I definitely agree with that. And that's a lot of great things for people to take away from our conversation. Think about kind of bring it together and put together like what is best for them, their brand, or their, I guess, any situation. Like they need to put in their own thought. And I know that me and you have taken the time to do so. And we make it sound so easy, but it does take a lot to figure.
It's one of those where like I'm home alone now, so I hug myself a lot. And it's you guys, like some people are alone for the first time in like years and actually having to face their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, our creator is my best friend, and then it's me. Like if you are not your own best friend, like understand people are flawed. We're all flawed. Like people will disappoint you. But it's like the more you connect with you and take care of you and hug you and love on you, guess what? Everything flows.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great point to kind of bring towards the ending of this. So, Katrina, how can people find you and how can they contact you to, like, I don't know, talk more, ask questions, connect?
So a couple ways. You can, the easiest and most central place to connect is fitlifecreation.com. Like Celia had earlier, super duper simple. That's where you can find the blog. That's where you can find the podcast. Over 250 binge-worthy episodes, literally.
How long are the episodes, by the way? Because I need to start listening through.
So side note, leave Netflix. Entrepreneurship's taking over. Tune into Celia's show. Tune into my podcast. Tune into other value things to add to your life. So the episodes vary. Some of them are like 10, 15 minutes, and some of them go like 30 minutes. Recently, I recorded an episode with Joel Halbaker, which he's amazing. It's going to be on today or tomorrow. Yeah, we went like an hour and 30 minutes too. So
I have a feeling if I come on there, it's going to be a long one too. But that's a whole side note. But continue back to like telling where people can find you.
So when you go to the site, you can find the blog, the podcast, the freebies there to, like you said, like to kind of jumpstart your journey, whether you're looking for transformation all in one, whether you're, social media influencer, you want more ways to monetize, to collaborate, whatever the case is, or if you're a brand and you want to set up a call, etc. And also you can follow along Instagram at Katrina Julia Fit. My handle is more or less the same on Twitter, on Pinterest, Facebook is Katrina Julia, etc.
And I put some of your links in the description already, which is awesome.
Yeah, LinkedIn.
I wanted to thank you so much, like, for taking the time today. I know we've been on here for like an hour and a half almost, and we had so many things that we covered, and I think that this is going to be a very valuable episode for anyone, that is watching, because whether it's your business, your personal brand, or even like just your personal page, if you're not looking to grow and you just, want to improve your content, there's so much to think about and so much to strategize about what you're doing. So I think we gave everyone a little bit of insight, and I want to thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Oh my God, Celia, you're such a gem. Like I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to connect with you. You're such a beautiful human. Like I'm so excited to see like how you grow in all these different directions. I'm grateful that you're staying safe, that, your boyfriend's taking care of you and going to the grocery store for you. Just so many things.
I think I just heard him come in downstairs.
So grateful, and so grateful to be on here, and so grateful to see, how, our connection, the community, just everything continues to develop.
Definitely. And I look forward to, all of our future collaborations, which are going to be amazing. So real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull you off of here. I'm going to close up, and then I'm going to thank you off screen. So
wait, before you take me off screen, I also wanted to say, taking the extra 30 minutes is totally great, totally fine. I'm happy to serve like you and your community. However, I'm here to serve.
Well, I really appreciate it. And I know that everyone else is going to appreciate it too, especially because, you'll hear in my outro of where all this is going to be, but people are definitely going to listen to this back on different platforms. Absolutely. But anyway, I'm going to do the closing, and I will be with you in 2 seconds. All right. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. I know that we had a lot of information that we went over between, transformations, business strategies, social media, influencers, all of the above. And I know that we covered a lot in a little bit of time. So whether you have questions for me, questions for Katrina, there's so many ways that you could connect with us and talk to us further. So I wanted to, wrap up the show with a big thank you to everyone involved. So if you jumped into the live late and you want to watch it back, you can watch it here on Facebook on the Celia Warner Productions page. You can watch it on YouTube on the Celia Warner page. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, where else are we? Spotify podcast and SoundCloud. And, we are in so many different places, and I really need to script this ending. So if anyone has an idea on how I should structure this, feel free to let me know. But I ad-lib it every day. So I wanted to thank you guys again for coming and joining us. And, we had some amazing questions. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, where I'm going to have my friend Emmy on. She's a blogger, and we're going to talk about what goes into making a blog, because, some people don't know. I don't know what she does. I want to hear what she does. It's going to be amazing. So I will see you guys tomorrow, and I thank you guys again.